There's a Shrek 4D experience, which, I mean, if you want like Shrek, I don't know, go to Universal or something like that. A stereotype that I feel like gets put out there in movies. You see the characters like trying to make the guards laugh. First of all, don't do that. Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm an American who's lived in the UK for almost 10 years, and today I am telling you all of the mistakes that people often make when they come to London. Okay, so like I said, in this video, I am giving you the do's and don'ts of London in particular. London is where I've spent most of my time while in the UK, not all of it, but most of it around London and the southeast of England. So again, these are London specific, not necessarily UK specific. London is a very different place, people will tell you, than the rest of the UK. And so today we are mostly talking about London. Now, if you want more information about visiting London, I would highly recommend you check out my Visiting London course. This is basically like an online guidebook, and the benefit is that it gets constantly updated because it is online as opposed to a printed book that you might get it and you know, it's the run for the year and then something changes and the book isn't updated. I've had loads of people tell me that this guide has really helped them make the most of their vacation, and it can be super expensive to take an international trip to London. So you really want to make sure that you've got everything in place and you know exactly what you're doing so you don't miss a single moment or a single attraction that should have been on your must-dos. Okay, let's get right into it with mistake number one. Buying individual tickets for the tube or paper tickets. So sometimes tourists will get to the tube station, they won't have figured out their transportation, they've just landed from the airport at Heathrow, and they decide to buy individual tube tickets. These are going to be almost double the cost of your other options. So this is really for the unprepared, and no Londoner ever buys really paper tickets anymore. There are two options that you have. The first is to get an Oyster Card, and an Oyster Card is basically your key to the London Underground as well as London buses. They can also get you on some boats, but I'll talk about that in a transportation video. But the Oyster Card is a £5 deposit. And what that means is that you basically load this card with money, and then when you go and tap into the tube station, the cost is going to come from the Oyster Card, kind of like any sort of like top-up card that you might use for any other situation. It's just a preloaded card that you put money onto. But when you use an Oyster Card, the cost of your journey is literally going to be like half of buying a paper ticket. The other option is going to be using a contactless card. A lot of people will comment below, I know this, they'll say, everybody uses contactless cards now. You know, nobody even uses Oyster Cards anymore. A lot of Londoners have transitioned into just using contactless cards because it's the same price and works just like an Oyster Card. You would tap it in and tap it out when you get out of the tube station. The only reason I don't say this is like a must-do for visitors is that if your card doesn't work abroad or has like pretty hefty foreign exchange fees, it is going to charge you the amount in pounds. So often for visitors from outside of the UK, I would say go with the Oyster Card option as opposed to using your contactless card from another country. But if you do have a card with no fees or something like that, as long as it is a contactless card, which means that you don't have to put it in a slot, you can simply press it on the reader and it will read it, then you can use that as well. So the next tip also has to do with transportation, and that mistake people make is trying to get on a London bus with cash. You cannot pay cash anymore on a London bus. It's not accepted, they won't take it. So a lot of times people are used to going to cities where you just buy the train fare or buy the bus fare on the bus. You cannot do that in London. You need to have your Oyster Card or a contactless card at the ready. No cash can be paid to the driver on board. Now, the third mistake people make is thinking that they can mess with the guards at Buckingham Palace. This is a stereotype that I feel like gets put out there in movies. You see the characters like trying to make the guards laugh. First of all, don't do that, because these are real guards who are doing their real jobs and not just tourist attractions. Secondly, this isn't possible anyway because the guards are actually in front of the palace, which is set very far back from the gates. So you can't just go up to them and talk to them. You can look at them from afar, but people come to London with this idea that they're going to make a funny video or a funny picture of them like trying to make a guard laugh. Not gonna work. The next mistake I see people make in London is always taking the tube. So visitors tend to be scared of London buses, not because there's anything to be scared of, but because the map and figuring out how the buses work is more difficult than looking at the very well-designed tube map. And secondly, people don't have a concept of where things are, so it's very easy to feel like you need to take the tube. But honestly, I would highly recommend walking as much as possible. There are so many tube stations where it's faster to walk than to actually get on the tube. And in terms of buses, you know, if you've got some free time to take a bus ride around the city, or you are more confident when it comes to public transportation, like take the bus. You can sit on the top of this double-decker bus. You can actually see London as you go by. The tube is amazing, but don't just stick to the tube because you'll basically be underground the whole time and not actually seeing London. The next mistake that people make is eating out in Piccadilly Circus or Leicester Square. So these areas are super, super touristy, which means that when it comes to the food and the pubs, they're going to be super touristy and mostly not worth your time. I would highly recommend definitely seeing them, but as I mentioned in my video on things that are overrated in the UK, I talked about Leicester Square. They're great to see, they're great to take some pictures in, but don't like plan your whole evening to have dinner around there because you're going to be paying tourist prices and probably eating tourist food. The next mistake that people make is this idea that they want to stay central. So people are used to cities that have like a downtown and then the rest of it, where the downtown has all the attractions that they might want to see and they consider this central. London is not like that. London has different rings if you look at a tube map, and so I'll talk about the inner ring, zone 1. That's very central, but it extends very far. It's not like a single downtown. And when people ask like, well, where's the best place to stay to see the major sites? It's very difficult to answer because the Tower of London and Tower Bridge, huge London sites, are nowhere near other London sites like Westminster and the Houses of Parliament and Westminster Abbey and things like that. So it really comes down to your personal must-dos for your own trip on where is best for you. I do London travel planning, and I will link that in the description on how to get in touch with me about that. People find that helpful because I can kind of help guide you on where is best to stay based on what you want to do. But get away from this idea that there is one central place to stay in London, because there's really not. The next mistake visitors make in London is a simple one, but people make it all the time. People think that what is actually known as Tower Bridge, the famous bridge that you're probably thinking of right now when you think of London, they think that's called London Bridge. And I remember watching Olympic commentaries and Olympic coverage back in 2012. And even commentators were talking about how we were now seeing the beautiful London Bridge. That is not true. The bridge that is really magnificent and grand in London is called Tower Bridge. Now there is a bridge called London Bridge, but there's nothing special about it. So you wouldn't really, you know, it's not going to be like a huge highlight of your stay. The bridge that you're thinking of is called Tower Bridge. Now, the next mistake visitors make in London is getting fish and chips at a pub. So there's a difference between getting fish and chips at a pub and getting fish and chips at what is known as a chippy, which is basically a takeout place that only does fish and chips. They might have a couple seats, but it's not like a restaurant. They do fish and chips as their main meal. And it's always going to be better to go to a chippy. You can get some good fish and chips in a pub. I'm not saying like it hasn't happened, but typically the best fish and chips that you're going to get is going to be from somewhere that really only does fish and chips. If you do find yourself in somewhere like Borough Market, they've got a really good fish and chip stall, but they're all around the city, and you'll notice them because they won't have like tons of sit-down seating. It will look kind of like a takeout place that says fish and chips. That's where you should go. Okay, the next mistake has to do with the tube again, and that is visitors like to stand on the left of the escalator. Now, when you get to London and you see the signs written all up the escalator, it will say, please stand to the right, and that means that people who are on the left are going to be passing, because Londoners can be a very impatient breed as they're trying to get to the office. So just know when you're on the tube escalator, if you are not walking up the escalator, you need to stand on the right-hand side to let people on the left pass you. Okay, so the next mistake are people actually thinking that Londoners are rude. And I would say this goes for any major city, and I myself have made videos about how like I miss the outward friendliness of Americans as opposed to living in the UK. So I'm not necessarily saying that like Londoners are as chatty as maybe their friends up north. Definitely the north in the UK is known for a bit more friendly, outgoing kind of personalities and culture. But Londoners are just busy. They're just going from place to place. But often, as long as you don't choose somebody who literally looks like they are late for a meeting, often people are really friendly in terms of helping you figure out where you're going. I myself, I guess once I adopted this look that appeared to others that I knew where I was going, I get stopped a lot. But don't be afraid to stop somebody and see if they've got any directions for you or can point you in the right direction, as long as they're not like literally rushing up the tube steps. A lot of people are really friendly and will help you out. The next mistake that people make when they come to London from overseas is not planning for jet lag. I'm not saying that jet lag is going to like ruin your trip or take you down or anything like that, but if you are coming, for me, I work with a lot of American visitors to the UK. If you're coming from the west coast of the US to London, first of all, it's an 8-hour time difference. Your body is going to be out of whack when you first get here, and you're just going to have to accept that and plan for that. Do not plan your craziest day on the day that you arrive, because people often think, well, my flight gets in at 8 a.m. Well, you're not taking into account the fact that to you, it's like the day before and completely the wrong time, and you probably didn't sleep on the plane. A lot of people can't sleep on the plane, and now you've got this like jam-packed day. Give yourself some breathing space, get to your hotel or Airbnb, plan something. Don't just give in to the jet lag, but know that it will be a part of the beginning of your trip. So try and put the things that involve like staying out super late or your must-dos a little bit later in your itinerary. The next mistake people make are visiting tourist attractions like Madame Tussauds. There's a Shrek 4D experience, which, I mean, if you want like Shrek, I don't know, go to Universal or something like that. The London Aquarium is also like pretty touristy, not like super well known for being a world famous aquarium or anything like that. So make sure to do your research and stay away from the more touristy attractions like those. I just think there's so much to see in London that it's kind of pointless to waste your time with those when you could see those in another city that doesn't have as much to do. Okay, the next mistake that people make and misconception that they have about London is they don't realize how global London is. So London has, I think, every cuisine possible, every language possible. You're probably gonna hear as you're walking down the streets. Obviously, it is a city in the UK, but we're not talking like idyllic Cotswolds, kind of your more stereotypical like British experience. London is a multicultural city, and that is what makes it so amazing and so great to explore. Is you won't just be experiencing British culture, you have the opportunity to explore food and customs and events and languages that span the world. So really be prepared and excited for that kind of multicultural experience. The next mistake that visitors make when they come to London, in my opinion, is paying for the view from the Shard. This is included in the London Pass, which I do like. So if you have the London Pass, then go up the Shard. But if you don't have the London Pass, the Shard costs like 20 something pounds to go up and see the view. You can see a really great, pretty much equal view for free from the Sky Garden if you book in advance. So when you take into account like a family of 4 going up the Shard and spending like over $100, it doesn't really compare to the awesome free view of the Sky Garden. And people just think that because the Shard is an attraction that is included in the London Pass, that it's something that is worth doing. It's not really on my top list of must-dos. I much prefer the Sky Garden view. The next mistake people make is taking London black cabs everywhere. So yes, the taxi drivers or the cab drivers for London black cabs, they know the city inside and out. They have to take a test called the knowledge, which means that they know every alley, every street, like everything there is to know about how to get you best from point A to B, and I'm not knocking that. However, they can be relatively expensive, and also you've got to think about London traffic. So unlike in some places where it might be faster to get in a car or to get in a taxi, a lot of times in London, it's actually faster to walk or to take the tube. Again, this is kind of a consideration with buses as well. I do think that you should take them, but you've got to keep in mind if you're taking a bus at 5:30 p.m. On a weekday during rush hour, like you're gonna be kind of stuck in traffic. So unless you have physical limitations, if you are able to walk or to navigate tube steps, I definitely would say take a black cab for the experience, but don't plan on taking them everywhere you go. My next tip is for those of you who are planning London trips in the winter. If you come expecting a snowy winter wonderland, it's probably not gonna happen. Like it might happen, maybe like a small chance, but when it does snow in the UK, London is definitely not the first place that it's gonna happen, and it's really not a very snowy city. So if you come in the winter, again, make sure you bundle up warm and you can hopefully dream of this snowy landscape if that's what you're looking for, but you're probably not gonna get it, so just prepare yourself for that. Another tip that kind of has to do with the snow, kind of not, is a lot of visitors think that because it does rain quite often in London, that they should come prepared with rain boots. Now, when I lived in Pittsburgh, I remember rain boots being something that I would wear around town on a rainy day. Londoners do not wear what they would call wellies, rain boots, on a daily basis. You would wear them like if you go for a walk in the countryside in the mud or something like that. But people get shoes here that are regular shoes but are waterproof, because it's not going to be comfortable for your feet walking in London all day in rain boots. And also the kind of like off and on rain patterns means that a lot of times you might end up wearing rain boots and then it doesn't rain and then it stops for an hour and then it comes back and then it stops and comes back. So you want to make sure that you have waterproof shoes and accessories, but not rain boots. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the video. Those are the mistakes I see people making the most. I would love for you to comment below and ask any other questions you have. Like I said, I do have multiple resources for you if you are visiting London. Check out the description and make sure to hit subscribe. I talk about British life, I talk about expat life in the UK, and I also talk about the best, most overrated, worst UK and London attractions, and I'll have lots more London content and information coming for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.